Hi everyone, and welcome back. My name is Isma Siddiqui, and you're in the process of listening to my story about my tour to Turkey, which was back in 2020. This is episode 2. Last week, I left you at the story of how we all got about going to Turkey instead of Bali, who all joined me in that trip, and everything we did before applying for the visa, while applying for the visa, and probably just the time when we got the visa. There were so many things that we had to do before getting the visa, before applying for the visa. And my sister and I, once I got permission from my dad and she got permission from her family, we just became a team and we started doing things together. For me, this entire thing was a very cool experience. For my sister, it wasn't that big because she had recently gone to China, and a little before that, she was gone to Dubai. So she was, I'd say, fluent in traveling. Unlike me, I hadn't traveled in many years, particularly international travels. So there were a lot of tips that she was sharing with me, and there were a lot of ideas that I wanted to share with her. I begin my planning or any major events with a list. And this is exactly what I did when we were finally sure that we're going, when I had permission from my dad. I was already making a list in my head, but I started keeping a notepad next to my bed because usually before dropping to sleep, I would get really amazing ideas and something would just click to me and say, oh, this is something that I need. So I had a list in the old school way, paper and pen, and I also had a digital list on Keep. That list on Keep was something that I shared with the rest of the group as well. We had a few collaborators on it, and we were constantly adding and taking things off depending on what our conversation was like. Now, because I hadn't traveled for many years, I didn't really have any luggage to take along with me. And very typical of Pakistani families, when a girl gets married, she ends up getting a lot of luggage to take along with her because that's what she's dumping her things in. So my sister had a bunch of trolley bags. So instead of buying one, I decided to borrow one from my sister. She had plenty of them and she was more than happy to share one with me. I got one of those medium-sized ones from her, which were not working, very honestly. There was something wrong with the wheels or the handle. I don't remember what exactly. So I went back to her and I said, give me another one. This one doesn't work. And she gave me one that was relatively smaller. I would have preferred the larger one, but she had a bunch of things in her large trolley bag. So she gave me the smaller one and she said, just make do with it. So I had a lot of things to take. Remember, I had been doing a lot of shopping for my Turkey trip. So I had a lot of clothes to take with me. I didn't really have anything else besides clothes because that's the good thing about traveling on a tour where you don't really have to buy gifts for anyone. But I was sure that I'm going to be bringing a lot of stuff back, which included gifts and souvenirs for my friends here, and obviously other things, at least something for my dad. So I was going to be out of space, and that was a concern for me. So I decided to keep this tiny bag that I have, which was kind of foldable, and I decided to put it in my luggage and use that as my cabin bag when I returned with extra stuff that I buy in Turkey. My sister was smarter. She didn't take much stuff with her to Turkey. She just kept a few clothes and everything that could fit in a tiny trolley, which she packed in a larger bag, and then she took that. So when she was returning, she had the tiny trolley where all the stuff that she had already taken from Karachi was there. And then she had a larger suitcase, which allowed her to shop like crazy. This is a tip. You should keep that in mind when you're traveling to shopping destinations. Just do this. Pack up in a smaller bag, dump that into a larger bag, and get that checked in. And when you return, you have your smaller bag as your cabin bag, and then you have the larger suitcase for all the shopping that you are planning to do in, at the destination that you are at. Now, my packing style is I usually make a list of things that I'm going to be taking along with me. The first list is usually a very crude draft of everything that I want, which is just everything just goes on paper. um, without any order. And then once I'm sure that that list is final, I will sort those things out in categories. So I know these are the clothes that I will be taking, this is the makeup I'll be taking, these are the shoes that I'll be taking. I sort my list according to things in categories, and then I start packing. By then, I have everything so clear in my head that there is very little chance of me missing anything. I have made that list in weeks, and then I've categorized them, which again makes me go through the entire list so I can delete things from it if I have to, or find an alternative for things that I don't want or I think are too bulky to carry with me. And once that list is finalized, everything is ready, and I just have to dump everything into a bag. Another item on my list was currency, the Turkish lira. I wanted to get the money exchanged here in Pakistan instead of wait to go to Turkey and then getting exchanged, which for me, feel is more, it's a little more sensible because I feel kind of stranded if I go to a country and I don't have their money. Having their money in my pocket makes me feel a little more safer and less abandoned. So in case if I need money in an emergency, I have the money. I can go from the airport to the hotel. I can spend it on a phone call. Just makes things easier. I got the entire thing um, exchanged here in Pakistan. I didn't take any dollars with me for exchange in Turkey, and I think everybody else did the same, except for Farwa, who was the bride to be. She was carrying dollars, and she got her money exchanged in Turkey itself. Our last weekend before the flight was very chaotic. There was just too much to do. And even though I had been planning for this trip for many, many, many weeks, there was just so much to do at the last moment. Um, because on Friday, the day that we got our visa, I also got my currency exchanged, and then I had to hand over everything to my sister, who I met with on Sunday because that was the day we had to go for our PCR test. This was the mid of COVID, so no airline was accepting people without a PCR test. And we had to get it done 24 hours before traveling. Now, that itself kind of gave us anxiety of some sorts because honestly, you could be a carrier without even knowing, and you could test positive for COVID, and that could ruin your entire plan. So, very nervous about that. But we got through. We gave our test. My sister came over to my place. I handed over her the currency that I got exchanged. We sorted things through. She's an anxious traveler, so her anxiety kind of rubs on you. Once all the exchange was over, she ended up watching Netflix because that was calming for her, while I decided to do my own things, just run through my list to make sure that everything has been packed. I did some last minute banking work where I informed my banks that I'd be traveling and they should activate my cards for international transactions, which was not much of an issue, but there is a possibility that sometimes banks block your cards for fraudulent activities, and I just made sure that nothing of that sort happened. Then I had to get my SIM activated for international roaming, the internet international roaming, which allowed me to use my internet while I was in Turkey without having to buy a SIM there, which was a very good decision that I made. I landed at the airport and I was able to reach out to our families back here, informing them that we've landed here, which kind of kept me connected throughout. And there were so many times where I got lost in Turkey, and Google Maps was able to help me. With that done, we still had a lot of time left, and we moved back to our WhatsApp group where we were exchanging last minute updates and news, and deciding what to keep, what not to keep. Just, random chit chats, sharing our anxieties and our excitement over the WhatsApp group. And in that group, we decided we would leave early for the airport because no matter what we did, we could not relax that night. None of us could sleep except for Zaira. She's the only person who went to bed at 2 o'clock sharp with the hope that she would get up at 4 and be at the airport by 4:30. But because we were still active on WhatsApp, we all decided, because of the lack of sleep, that there's no point of just sitting here and chatting on WhatsApp. We should all get to the airport and wait there. So our parents aren't anxious, and we aren't anxious, and we just have everything sorted. So the rest of us got ready except for Zaira because she was sleeping. She didn't see our messages, and we all headed towards the airport. Zaira woke up at 4 as expected, and she saw our messages, and she's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll be there on time by 4:30ish." She is very punctual, so none of us were really worried about her not being there in time. And anyways, we weren't really planning to go in for checking our baggages. We were just standing outside of the airport and taking pictures and getting our parents introduced to each other. It was COVID time, so we really were not allowed a huge group there. And the security was getting a little irritated with us because we were just being so irresponsible and childish about, being there. We are just, busy taking pictures and having a laugh with the parents. We're totally enjoying ourselves carefree. As soon as we heard from Zaira that she's on the way to the airport, we decided to go in because the security was getting a little annoyed with us. We said goodbyes to everyone at the airport and then we went inside. Everything was very smooth there. So there was like nothing that was too memorable for us, except for the fact that my sister decided that she wanted to overpass our entire booking and say, "I want a window seat." So she was sitting separately while the rest of us were sitting together, pretty much. Farwa and Azmina were sitting together. My sister was sitting with some random uncle because she wanted a window seat. And Sarah and I got the entire aisle seat together, which allowed us to spread, which overall was a great experience because I hadn't traveled in an almost empty plane in many years. Our true excitement came in after we crossed the passport control. We headed towards the waiting lounge where there is a butler's cafe, and I decided to go and get myself a cup of coffee there. And that was the first time that we all sat down together, and that's when we realized that this is actually the first time that all five of us are together. Because before that, we were not really meeting all together. Four of us would get together, and Farwa usually was not there. So even for the visa application, she applied a little later on than the rest of us. And even for collecting the visa, she went in separately to collect it. So that was the first time all five of us was together, and we were like really excited. We just could not stop our anxiety. Oh, did I say anxiety? I meant excitement. We could not stop our excitement. There is, in fact, a picture of me and Zaira sitting together that I took in the flight where she's extremely sleepy because she's just had a couple of hours of sleep. Even though I haven't had any sleep at all throughout the night, I am so excited. It just shows on my face. Our trip was nice. It was COVID, so there was no food on the flight, unfortunately, but we did get these cheese sandwiches, like snacks, cheese sandwiches with the juice and some cake, I think. And fortunately, it was split in two servings. So we got one serving as soon after the takeoff, and then one a little after or before the landing. It was an altogether 6 hour flight, so we got like ample time to sleep on the flight too. I unfortunately was not able to sleep because one, excitement, and two, I was just watching Harry Potter on the in-flight entertainment. I was also reading because I wanted to take a book with me that would stay with me and it would stay in my head as a book that I read in Turkey, which it did. The story was bad, but I think I still remember it because it was such an amazing experience of being able to read or being able to feel something that I enjoy in another country. We were super excited, where we actually screamed a bit after we crossed the immigration at Istanbul. And we were finally sure that yes, now we're in Istanbul and there is absolutely no going back from here. This is going to be an adventure for us and we're going to enjoy it, make the most of it. And we were squeaking and screaming and doing all these girly, giggly things. We'd asked for airport pickup from the hotel where we were staying, and we insisted on that even though it was going to be costing us a little more. but we wanted to make sure that somebody was coming and picking us up. We didn't really want to use public transport soon as we arrive in Turkey without much knowledge of the system. We didn't want to take a cab because we're just Pakistani females worried about being kidnapped, although that would probably not be the case, but still, fear is something that you can't argue with. Now, the hotel gave us this alphanumeric code, which we were supposed to use to find our pickup. And once we got out of the airport, we spent quite some time walking up and down to figure out who was holding a placard with our code on it. Basma was able to figure out, and she reached out to the guy who was holding that card and asked him if he's here to pick us up. It took us a while for him to coordinate between the hotel and I guess his own company. He checked out our booking as well. There was a lot of communication thingy that was happening while a couple of us were just sitting there and being lazy. I was pretty much drained by that time because I had not slept the night. I was excited all throughout the flight. I did not even sleep during the flights. I was kind of drained out by that time. Not to forget, I was also hungry because I hadn't had breakfast. We had some sort of dinner. I don't remember what time we had that. And the food in the flight was practically a couple of sandwiches, which weren't obviously enough. And I think we arrived at the airport around 2-ish or 3-ish. Not really sure because once we were in Istanbul, there was really no sense of time. We were just doing things uh, based on whatever we felt like instead of looking at the time. So I have no clue what the time was. I don't remember anything about looking at a watch and seeing, oh, it's 2 o'clock, oh, or it's 3 o'clock. No idea. So we finally got confirmation from the hotel or the company of the guy. He took our luggage. We found our car, and it was a very comfortable looking van. And once we were in, we were just relaxed because we knew we're finally heading towards where we're supposed to be, which was less anxiety for us. And we enjoyed the journey. So we looked through, the streets were really nice. Not that time, we were on the road then, which was pretty neat. There was greenery, there were beautiful houses on the way, there were buildings that, you're just enjoying the entire view. And it was very, very sunny. So the first thing I noticed when I got off the plane was this color of the sky, which was bluer than blue. It was such a pretty, pretty blue that I have not witnessed one of those kind of colors or shades of blue in Karachi for ages. Well, we finally arrived at the hotel. The first thing that the guy wanted to do was get our passports and probably take copies of that. And then he gave us the keys to our rooms, which was we booked two rooms, a triple room and a double room. Zara and I ended up sharing the double room, and Basma and her friends were in the triple room, which were in different floors also. We were a floor above, I believe, and they were a floor below, or maybe the other way around. They were a floor above us, and we were a floor below. So, generally, hotels in Europe and Turkey included are pretty tiny. We're not used to that. In Pakistan, our rooms in the houses are huge, and the rooms in the hotels that we stay in normally are very huge also. So that hotel room seemed pretty tiny to us, but not that bad. We took a round of the room, we checked it out. It was pretty neat. Very decent, comfortable. We left our luggage. We decided to relax for a bit and then head out for lunch. Now, I'm going to cut off my entire story here again for this week, and I'd want you to join up next week again to hear about the story of where we had lunch and then where we went off and how we got lost and how we got saved. So until the next episode, you guys stick around and I will speak to you soon.